everyone, welcome back. On this demo, we're going to be covering mask within the adjustments layers. So basically, we have so far discussed how adjustments works. We now cover how the brush works. And now we're going to basically put those two things to basically take advantage of the mask on the adjustments layers. So to start with this demo, I'm going to open a couple images here because I want to show you different ways that we can incorporate this. And I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to make sure that my workspace looks like you guys. So reset workspace. There we go. Okay, so this is an image that I think it would be a good example to play around with darkening basically the sky, but at the same time keeping how the foreground is, or maybe even adjusting that even a little bit more. So before, what we covered already with the adjustment layers, I'm going to open a curves, right? And we're going to put it right here. And before, what we covered is that you can make your image, brighter, right? You can kind of like add contrast to it to make it look more interesting. But those are what we call global adjustments, okay? Those are global changes that affects the overall image. Now, what we're going to start using is how can we take advantage of the mask, okay? So to do this, we're going to basically be using the brush tool and the adjustments together to make this happen. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to reset this all the way. I'm going to move the layers panel all the way over here so you can see it. And what I'm going to show you is basically really simple. Okay, imagine that you are applying the adjustment. Okay, let's say that we have this curve right here and you're brightening it up, or let's say darkening, okay, to like thinking about the sky. Okay, let's assume that we want the sky like that, right? That looks nicer, right? It has some nice dark blues. You can see the clouds, but the problem is that the foreground, where the birds are, it became too dark. Okay, so we have to balance that out. So in every adjustment that you do, it doesn't matter if it's the curve, the levels, the black and white, all of them, when they come up on the layers, there's going to be a little square or rectangle that's white right next to it. And you can see these little brackets that are kind of like around this little square. If I click here, it goes to the properties, but if I click here, it will go to the mask, and the properties will change to some options that we have right here. Okay. Now, how the mask works, and this is like the most important thing about mask, is understanding how it works. When it's white, okay, it reveals whatever you're doing here on this adjustment that we did of the curve darkening. Okay, if this little square is black, that means that it's going to hide or cover whatever this is doing. Okay, so think about it in these terms: the white reveals and then the black conceals. Okay, that should be like engraved in your brain right now. Okay, white reveals, black conceals, because that's what you're going to use to basically reveal parts of that adjustment or hide with the brush. So now let's go back from the beginning. So we are right here. Let's assume that you start with this image and you realize, you know what? I really like this image. I want that sky darker. So you go ahead and you open your curve. So it's the curves are open. You go right here to this hand and you click on the sky and you darken it. Okay. And then, okay, I kind of want it like that. That looks pretty good. But then the foreground is basically too dark. So what you're going to do is, the next step is, you're going to click on your icon of the mask, which is right here. And then you're going to navigate to your toolbar. You're going to select the brush or press B. So that way you get your brush. And now remember that we covered how to make it smaller with the left bracket key or bigger with the right bracket key. Now, in the way that we're using this brush right now, there's two things that you have to be aware of. First, you have to go here and you have to make sure that the hardness is set to 0. So it's really soft at the edges, okay? So I want hardness to 0, and make sure that you have the soft round, because I had the screen tone right here and that would have been bad. Okay, so make sure that you have the first one that it says soft round, okay, and hardness to 0. Now the size is going to depend, but in this case, we actually want a big brush, okay, and it's going to be something like that to start with, for two reasons. One, the bigger the brush size is, the softer the edges will be. So it's in addition of the hardness being on 0, the size also influences how we see that softness. So we want to start with the big size, okay? And then what you do is, if I remember, I told you white reveal, so it's revealing what's happening here. So if I click here, select my brush, and then make sure that on the foreground, I have black. If you don't have black and you have white, remember, you can click this little arrow here and you can flip between the two, or you can press X in your keyboard. If you press X, it will flip between the two. Now, if by any chance you see that you have a different color combination of black and white, if you press the letter D in your keyboard, it will go to the default colors, okay, which are black and white, okay? So remember, we want black on the top. So I'm going to go ahead and press X so I can move the black to the top because that's what I want to paint with. So if I paint with black, basically it will hide what this is doing. So if I go ahead and start painting, you can see that I can start seeing the image how it was originally, okay? I'm not like lightening up the image. This is just how the image was, okay? But because I'm painting with black on the mask, if you notice right here, I'm going to move it in the middle so you can see it. This is what I just did. I painted with black on the bottom, okay? So it's hiding whatever this is doing, which was darkening the image. So right now you're telling the computer, you know, this part that I painted black, I don't want you to apply those changes that I did, okay? So that's really helpful when you're doing this. So that way you can kind of see how that's working. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing this area right here. Now, if you notice, in the way that I'm painting, I'm not going all the way to the edge. I'm staying below here for two reasons. One, I want to make sure that, you know, I don't lose any spots. And then when I get closer, I'm going to make it smaller, okay, so I can have more control. So then I can start going like this and going little by little around the edges, okay? Now, I don't care that much if the trees are a little bit dark. I'd rather not have visible what I do on the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, let me show you the before and after. So this is, right, without that adjustment. And what we did is we darken only the sky because in this mask, we're hiding all the stuff with black of what we did there. So you don't see it, okay? So that's what we call masking with the adjustment layer in Photoshop. It's a really powerful technique. It works with any of the adjustments. For example, if I do a color balance, let's do a hue and saturation. Let's say I do a hue and saturation and I want to change the sky to, I don't know, purple, right? Right now I'm doing the whole image purple. But if I click here and I paint the bottom part with black, I can hide away the purple from this bottom part. That adjustment that I did of the hue, I can hide it from that bottom part. So now only the sky is purple. So this is really powerful. Now, you know, that I went over all these adjustments and what they do, then you can start thinking about, oh, what if I add like the sky to be a little bit warmer only and not, you know, the foreground or things like that. So you can start combining this with all of your adjustment layers to make it really powerful. So let me back up a little bit. I'm going to go here. Now there is a nice shortcut that if you press Option and you click on the icon of the mask, it shows you basically a preview of that mask. So that way you can see where it is on your image. If you want to hide it, you press Option and then you click again, and then you can go back to work. And I noticed that on the bottom here, I missed a spot. So I want to make sure I copy, you know, paint that with black here. There are a couple of little holes, and that's about it. Now it should look better. So if I press Option and click, I can see that it looks nice. Okay, so that is your mask, and this is going to be really powerful. That's why I covered the brush first, because you were not able to do this if you don't know how to control your brush. So knowing how to control your brush is really key. Remember that you can go up here, make sure that the hardness is to 0, because if I put the hardness all the way up, I'm going to show you what happens, and I'm going to make my brush. That's what it looks if I start doing that, right? So you don't want to see the edge of your brush. That's why we want to have it, nope, wrong one. I want to have it all the way on 0. Let's see how it looks. You see the difference? That's softer. So when you have the brush big, you will see less of that transition. Okay, so that's why you want to have basically a soft and big brush when you're doing masking for photographs. There might be other moments that it's okay to have like a harsh, you know, or hard edge on your brush, okay? But for this case, you want very soft. So when you see the image, you don't notice it. Okay, in the dark room when we used to do this and you have to hold a board, you have to make sure that you move it so that way the edge or the line of that board was blurry, so that way you don't notice it. So here, that's with the hardness. Okay, so that's one image that I want you guys to practice on. You can do the same, for example, on this image. You can basically open the curves, and let's say you want to darken the rocks a little bit. Okay, that can be one adjustment layer. So I will write here, rocks, so that way you know what you're doing. And then you can make another one on top for the sky. Okay, and now for the sky, maybe I want the sky even darker. Let's say I want it like that. Okay, now it's darkening everything. But if I click there and make sure I have my brush with black and I paint here, I can take it away from the rocks right here. Okay, and the plants if I wanted that. I'm not going to do the foreground, but that's what I basically did. Right now I have some holes here because I'm not having my brush big enough, so I make sure I cover everything. But I can show you how that looks. So that's the sky being darker, right? So that way it looks more interesting, and you have basically the foreground also. I left it a little bit darker so you focus more on the rocks. I want the attention to be on the rocks. So of course, when I do these labs, keep something in mind. Don't judge my Photoshop skills, because I could be going in closer and being really careful. But for now, I just wanted to do a quick, so that way you can see what it does. But if I want to actually do it well, I probably will zoom in and do it more carefully. Okay, and I'll explain that later on in another lab. But for now, the main thing that I want you to understand is the concept of what a mask does. Okay, basically the mask will hide or reveal something that you're doing to the image. Okay, let me show you in a different example. For this one, I think the background here, it's a little bit too bright, and the foreground can be a little bit brighter. So I have to brighten up the foreground, but darken that part. So I will do the same thing. I'll add a curve, right? I'm going to look at the foreground first. I'm going to make it brighter, maybe somewhere like there. Okay. And then I'm going to make another one. I'm going to write here, ground. Yeah, I can't type today. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have the foreground, and maybe I do another one for the background. Okay, so I have one for the background, and then this one, I'm going to lower the highlights. So I need to lower this. I'm going to try to leave the foreground how it was, make sure that it doesn't go up. And one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to darken this, but I'm actually going to lower this one too a little bit and try to darken that so we can get a little bit more detail. It's not perfect. I have to find a way of adding more contrast. Let's do this. Okay, somewhere there. So let's see the before and after. So right now it's darkening everything, right? But I'm going to take it away from the foreground. So I'm going to click on the mask. I'm going to select my brush tool, make sure it's on black, and then I can go ahead and, make sure that the cart here in the foreground, even if I want this gentleman here, I can make it bigger so it's a less harsh transition. Okay. So let's see how that looks. So let me show you the before and after. I'm going to go to the history. I'm going to pull this out so we can see. Okay, so that's how it was, right? So the background was a little bit bright. I darken it a little bit and then brighten up the foreground. Now that you do that, you can now do a global adjustment. So I can add a third one, and I can play with darkening everything if I want, adding a little bit more contrast. And then I can see in the history here how that looks. So from here, you can see how that foreground and the background got darker, right? I think I can fix this area here. I feel like there's a little bit dark spot. But overall, it seems like it balanced out the image a little bit, right? To darken and brighten the foreground. So that's basically what you have to practice as you keep going on, and there's going to be different images here that you will see that the same thing will happen. You have all this dark area right here, right? So if I add a curve, I can add a curve. I can go ahead and I can either go with the hand here, and let's say that I want this to be brighter. Let's say I want it like that. Okay. Now I can click on the mask. Now let me show you a different way. Right now, I basically brighten up the shadow area of this image somewhere here, okay? So it brightened up the sky too much. Since this area is smaller, I could invert, okay, this mask by going here where it says invert on the properties panel, okay? And if you invert it, it will make it black. But then you have to paint with white to make that area lighter, okay, on the shadows. So that's another way that you could do it too. I actually do this a lot when I find that I just want to paint an area and I don't want to, like, instead of painting all this in, I'd rather just paint this little area. So that's a lot quicker. So I would do it that way. And of course you will have to like go in and like figure out, you know, where the shadows are and fill those in. So that way they're less noticeable. For example, oh, this column right here is a little bit too dark. But I would do that more carefully. Okay, right now we're just worrying about getting the concept so you can understand how it works. So that's what we're looking for, right? So this is how it was before, and I brightened up that part, so then it's more noticeable, okay? I could do another one now, for example, for the sky, and get the sky darker. Click here and lower, you know that. And then I could do the same thing. Let me show you a different way of doing this. I just showed you by just going to invert, okay? But one way that you could do it too is there is an option that if you click Shift Delete, okay? Let's go back. Shift Delete will fill your background, okay? So let me go here under curve. You know, I do Shift Delete. This will come up, okay? I just didn't press Shift enough hard. So the first one, it actually deleted only. So you have to be careful with that. You have to make sure that you hit, you know, Shift and hold it down while you click Delete. If you click too quickly, it might not get the shift, and then it will delete the layer for you. That's what just happened to me. So make sure that you press the shift and then delete. Now, another way of getting this window, let me walk you through it. If you actually go here to where it says edit, okay, on the top, and then you go down to fill, okay, that's the shortcut, all right? That will open up this window, okay? And once you get that window, you can pick what color you want. So if I want to fill that with black, I can click black and then press OK, and then it fill it with black, okay? Now I have my image there black, so it's covering what I just did, right? So if I hide it or show it, it doesn't matter because right now everything is hidden. But if I paint with white, it will basically reveal what I had there, which in this case I forgot to actually get it darker. All right, so then we get the sky darker, okay? So now we have two things right now. We have the sky darker, that's one, and then we have this other part on the bottom lighter. So we're balancing out the image, okay, the shadow and the highlights. You can get, you know, really into this. There's so many things that you could do, and you also will have to take time to do it correctly. I'm doing it like from far away and like doing it kind of sloppy because I just want you to understand the concept. But if you want, you have to like go in and closely pay attention to what you're doing, and then you balance out the picture correctly. So this is going to become huge, not only for blending, you know, images in terms of like tonalities and color, but later on we're going to use it even to combine images. So this is going to become really useful. So you definitely need to understand how this works. It's basically a foundation of one of the things that's really important in Photoshop. Oh, let me close these two. Don't save. Okay. So what you're going to do is, I'm going to give you a couple labs where you want to practice this. Now, remember that you can go back to the video and watch how it works because you really have to understand all the little tricks on how to make this work, okay? Remember, you can fill this entirely if you press Shift Delete, okay? So you can start with black if you want, or you can start with white. So if you want to hide it, you can do that and then paint with white, okay? That's one option that you have. Or if you just start with how it comes out, which is just white, you're just going to see whatever you're doing in that adjustment, okay? And then when you see it, then you, if you need to hide it in some areas, then you just select, you know, your brush tool, you press the D for default, make sure that it's black and white, and then you adjust the foreground and background color with the X or with the arrow according to what you want, and then you just go ahead and start revealing or concealing. Remember, the keywords are white reveals and black conceals. Now, and the way that this works is, it doesn't matter what I have on top and the bottom, like this mask is only affecting the adjustment that you have right here. Okay. So if this adjustment is darkening that sky, this mask is just in relation to this right here. They're not like this mask is not going to influence the other adjustment on top or the bottom one. It just works on that level of that layer. Okay. So that's something that's really important that you guys have to understand. Okay. Each adjustment, doesn't matter which one you click on. For example, levels will also have a mask. Brightness and contrast also have a mask. Black and white, you know what? You can do black and white. And you know what? You can hide it in some areas and do black on the top, and then you can reveal the colors in some area. So you can definitely have some fun with mask, okay? And we're going to be using it a lot. So this is not like a one, demo that I'm going to do and that's it. We're going to be using it and revisiting it often. So make sure that you understand it. And if you don't get it yet, don't worry, look at the video again. You'll get it. And by practicing, that's when you're going to understand how this works, okay? So I'm going to let you guys do the lab, so that if you have any questions, let me know and I'll gladly help you. Okay, so thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.